Welcome to the Reawakening Ancient Feminine Wisdom in Pregnancy, Birth, and Motherhood Summit. I'm your host, Nancy Lucina, and today we have with us Debra Pascali-Bonaro. Debra is a Lamaze International childbirth educator, birth and postpartum doula trainer with Dona International, director of the award-winning documentary Orgasmic Birth, The Best Kept Secret, and co-writer of Orgasmic Birth, Your Guide to a Safe, Satisfying, and Pleasurable Birth. She's also the founder and president of the revolutionary online childbirth class, Pain to Power. Debra's passion comes from her over 30 years of working with women, men, midwives, doulas, and physicians in over 40 countries, bringing comfort, love, and pleasure to birth and life. Today, Debra will be sharing her tips on how to open up to the idea of labor and birth being a pleasurable and intimate experience, and so much more. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today we have with us Debra Pascali-Bonaro from DebraPascali-Bonaro.com, OrgasmicBirth.com, and PainToPowerChildbirth.com. Welcome, Debra. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me here. It's such a pleasure.
It's such an honor to get to spend a little bit of time with you and soak up your wisdom. So I know that you have this beautiful way of viewing birth as being able to be pleasurable, and that you help really spread that news to the world in this big way. And for me, I run across so many women who are just terrified more than anything of the pain in childbirth. So sometimes they can be like, what? It can actually be pleasurable? What are you talking about? You're crazy. So what do you say to people like that? And in regards in particular to the fear of pain, what kind of perspectives can you offer or tools that you might want to share?
Well, first and that's a great question, because people always, just as you said, they can't imagine anything but pain. But one of the things I always like to ask people is, how many times have they been told childbirth is painful? And truly, most people will say from their first earliest memory, it might have been their mother telling them about their own birth, and then television and media has certainly continued that kind of, it's painful, painful.
Right.
And then break down that word pain. I mean, if I stub my thumb here, that's pain. If I have a toothache, it's pain. If I have my leg amputated, it's pain. And childbirth is pain. So we're using a word that's really vague in its definition, and yet somehow people have interpreted childbirth pain to be like the worst on the scale, right? If you just nicking my thumb as a 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say to people, first look at where you heard that, how do you define pain, and why are we thinking that? And I share, and this is always fun for me, I teach medical students in different places and midwifery students, and when they come in the room to me, and just wherever you are in the world as you're listening right now, imagine you just entered the space with me today. You're physically here with the two of us, and I would say to you that I just cleaned the environment with something that could make you itch. And just for a minute, imagine someone told you that. So wherever you're sitting right now, there could be something in the air that's going to make you itchy. And just think about itch for a second. And I bet you a few of you out there are already going, don't talk about it. Like, even though you know we're virtual,
Right.
There's this sense that you could itch. Well, when people are physically in the room with me, I truly get some people starting to go, oh my goodness. And then I say, well, I'm going to ask you every hour on a scale to 1 to 10 how much you're itching. And if you cross over the 5, I have medication, like a hospital would have pain meds. I have Benadryl and itching things. Well, aside from people thinking I have to get out of this room, the teacher is crazy if I'm in an itchy room. But then I say, how many times have you thought about pain? And just by thinking about itching, if you can start to itch in an environment, then how much have we planted the seed? What our mind hears, thinks, sees, our body feels. Yeah. And so in order to flip the paradigm, we have to really look at our belief systems and know that the fact that we use a language of pain in labor, I believe, is creating pain. And when I'm with people that use a language of pleasure, of joy, and that doesn't mean we're devoid of pain, but we open it up that we'll experience sensations. And then we can claim what that sensation feels like, rather than saying we're automatically going to itch. We can just say we all may have a response to something. And some of us, it might be joyful, and some of us something else. But with that, I have so many people I work with that pain is never a descriptive word that they would use in their entire labor. And they still may have challenge. It might be intense. It might be hard. But what I want to say is there's a whole language that really opens up. And by narrowing our language to pain, we've really left out the fullness that birth brings, including incredible bliss, joy, and ecstasy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the word pain creates an immediate resistance in the body, right? For me, it's just like, no, I don't want that. Yeah. And that's, of course, the last thing you want to be creating in a birth. You want to be creating that, you want to be creating conditions for surrender, right? So yeah, I definitely resonate with that a lot. And I was sharing before we hit record that I am actually at my best friend's house who recently gave birth, and it's been beautiful to listen to her replay her birth, which was an amazing birth. And she never used the word pain, as you said. And I was really thinking about that. I was listening to her like, wow, beautiful. You know, she said intense and certain other things, but she's like, nah, painful, nah, that wasn't the thing I would use, you know? So that's fascinating.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I love
It's
also,
really
sorry, I love changing the language too around contractions, which I think that initially learned that from you, to be honest, and maybe putting in other words like waves, um, surges, right? And letting the women come up with those words that they resonate with, and then telling the whole birth team, okay, we're going to call contractions waves or whatever it is, and then they can work with them a bit better, right?
totally, because contraction, right, for most people means pain.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
like, if we use the word itch, if you were going to feel itching, I think we'd have the whole world in labor scratching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The word that makes everyone feel pain.
Right. And actually, while there are some things that are contracting, there are so many things that are expanding in labor, including your mind, your body, your soul. I mean, everything, right? So I'd rather focus on the expansion part.
Totally.
Yeah. So, what would you say for women, not so much around the fear of pain, but rather, okay, maybe I've worked through a bit that fear and now I'm ready to open up to pleasure? Are there any certain things that they can do throughout pregnancy to allow themselves to possibly experience pleasure in birth?
That's so important. I'm glad you said that, because we birth the way we live,
Mm.
and pregnancy is the time that we have to examine our core values and beliefs. You don't just get into labor and it's like having a bad habit. You don't decide today's the day I'm going to change all the habits I don't like. You're not
Mm-hmm.
going to do that in childbirth. So I say to everybody, what do you do every day to find pleasure? And
Mm.
I know that life can give us challenges. We all have moments that we have loss, we have challenge, things are happening. But that doesn't mean we can't have moments of pleasure, even in the midst of some of our greatest challenges. As a matter of fact, I believe in our greatest challenges, we have to make those moments to bring us out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
people do things from yoga to breathing to walking, meditation, certainly connecting with our loved ones, our partners, sensuality, sexuality, and even like I'll just put on music for 3 minutes in the midst of whatever I'm doing and dance as, you know, no one's looking, but where do I want to just experience joy? So I say to everyone in pregnancy, what are you doing every day? And it can be an hour or it can be 3 minutes. And we all
Mm-hmm.
have a few minutes scattered through the day that we can stop for pleasure. And I
Mm-hmm.
would even add, I'm Italian, right? So food can be pleasure. So I have a little piece of dark chocolate every day, and I really pause before eating it because that's my little piece of orgasmic pleasure that I enjoy, and not that other meals also aren't made with that attitude of pleasure as well.
Yeah, I love that you said that because for me, I think it's so important to really infuse those moments into things that even we already are doing so that it doesn't feel like, oh, I got to add this one more thing onto my list when you're maybe tired and you're pregnant and you have all these things going on like, "Ah, I don't have time to sit on the yoga mat for an hour." Okay, but maybe you have time to eat or drink something with full presence, right? Mindfulness, and then just taking in every single sip of your tea, your coffee, or your chocolate, whatever it is, right? And really enjoying it. So I think that that's a really great practice. And then people don't feel like they have to add something to the list, but they can just put that mindfulness into something that they're already doing.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then you birth that forward into labor.
Yeah, exactly. Because you become it becomes more of your regular way of being. I think that that's so important. As you say, you have to use those 9 months to bring in that kind of energy you really want so that you're not just going into the labor suddenly like, oh, what were my tools again? But it's rather like
Yes.
I'm already in this state of being. Yeah, very important. So tell us about what can partners do? What kind of roles do partners play in the birth setting, especially in helping women to create this kind of atmosphere or helping them to create an atmosphere where they can really drop into that pleasure? Are there any specific things you recommend?
Yes. Well, I would recommend that partners do the same exercise during that 9 months, is
Mm,
find their own pleasure and make sure they're making their own moments, because again, it's hard to help someone to achieve something if you yourself are not there. But
mm,
then to really have conversations together, be aware on what each other's moments of pleasures are. What are the ways, if you only have 3 minutes, that you can open up to that experience? And then I say for partners, one of the best gifts they give is their love.
mm.
And loving her through labor. What are the ways that you express love? I love kind of the book, the 5 love languages. And
Yeah.
we should know our partner's love language. What is the way that they receive it? Do they need to hear it? Do they need to feel it? And many of us, it's multiple ways. So really loving her through labor is the greatest gift, because as we know, right, love is the hormone oxytocin, right, called the
Yeah.
hormone. And the more ways that you can help her to release that, the easier, gentle, and more ecstatic and pleasurable labor will be. So partners, you play a wonderful role. And I know a lot of partners, when they watch our documentary, Orgasmic Birth, they always smile after and they say, oh, I thought I needed this brand new toolkit. And so I was so nervous, like, am I going to be able to do it? And what I really saw is that it's just the same love and connection and
Mm.
intimacy that we enjoy in life. And I can do that. And I say, perfect.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I actually showed the documentary to both of my best friend and her husband. We all three watched it together. So yeah, I resonate with that. And it's just, for me, it's always so, one of my favorite things about being at births is actually observing the partner and how they step up into that hero's role, of just like, boom, I'm here. And it really calls out, I think, that solid presence that's kind of like this pillar of light in the room. I think that the women can just melt into and surrender into. And, she can say all kinds of things, and they're just like, yeah, I'm still here, and everything's good. So that solid presence in that loving way.
Yes.
So, so beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
What,
wonderful day.
sorry, what do you recommend if, in particular, for a hospital setting? So let's say they want to experience more of a gentle birth, an ecstatic birth, even maybe in a hospital setting. Are there specific things to do in a setting like that, or specific things to bring maybe into the birth room?
Well, as we honor that birth is a part of our sexual life. I always say that you have to create an environment that you would feel very safe and comfortable being intimate, if not making love in. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of the first questions is really to make sure your care team are people that really you respect, they respect you, and that they could be present in intimate moments in your life. Because if we want to open to intimacy, we have to feel safe by our surroundings, safe by the people we invite in. And
Mm-hmm.
if anyone enters our space, if our space doesn't feel safe, if someone enters that doesn't feel safe to us, that's honoring us, we will shut down. And
Yeah.
when we shut down in intimacy, it's the same as shutting down in birth. And I believe a lot of really long, difficult labors that sometimes end up in interventions are really from this basic place of lack of feeling completely safe. So the first thing to do is really wisely choose your care team. Make sure you feel that deep connection with them and know who's going to be there. I think when you're birthing in places, sadly, where strangers are entering your space, that can be incredibly difficult. So if that is what you have to accept for wherever you are with it, things like dimming the lights,
Mm-hmm.
bringing some of your personal kind of comfort things so that you can at least set the space to feel like yours. What
Mm-hmm.
do you need to feel safe? What are the sounds? Is there music? Is it the rainforest? You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're lucky with cell phones. We can today stream any kind of sound. We can bring smells. I
Yeah.
know for a lot of people, just hospital smell, if I were to release that in the air where we all are now, just the smell could sets
Mm.
us up and bring us to memories or thoughts that are not whole, healthy, wellness,
Mm.
and expansive, as you said so
Right.
well. So we need to create an environment that we can truly open to at every level and to the deepest, most sacred parts of ourselves to
Mm.
bring life into the world. So the environment and who's there with us
Mm.
makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And hiring a doula in that situation, because I mean, yeah, we're pretty biased, right? We always want you to hire a
Yes.
doula. But it's so important, as you say, because sometimes in the hospital settings, you can have a random stranger walk in, or the midwife or the doctor or the nurse changes shift. And so then they come in and they're, hey, and it's a new face. So the doula can be that thread throughout the entire experience. And she can kind of, I think, create that little bubble, help with creating that atmosphere. And
Definitely.
yeah, I love that you brought the smells, because I've been using diffusers a lot with some essential oils, and that's so
Oh,
helpful.
isn't it nice? Just when you smell your favorite smell, right? Your
Yeah,
body relaxes.
exactly. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the hormones. I know you mentioned oxytocin, so we want that to be flowing. That's the hormone of love. What what are certain things that stop that from flowing, and then maybe what other hormones get activated, and how can we get out of that negative loop? Maybe you already
So,
touched on that a bit, but anything?
but yeah, but we can add more. And one of the things, just recently, I was co-speaking in the Netherlands with Michel Odant, and he was giving new data that just made so much sense, and I love it. In that oxytocin works well with melatonin,
Mm,
and that we're starting to see, he's showing some research that people that have sleep issues, that have disturbances in melatonin, have trouble producing optimal oxytocin. And
mhm,
melatonin is produced best in absolute darkness.
mm,
And it would make sense that in general, humans mostly begin labor and often birth at night. And
mm,
it would make sense that in the darkness, right, the melatonin would be produced, which would help our oxytocin to rise and flow.
mhm,
Now, think about in a hospital environment where there's never darkness,
mm,
there's lights going, or how many people today, sadly, are using cell phones, and cell phone light is not good, computer screens and that. So one of the things to help your oxytocin flow is to really get the room as dark as you can.
mhm,
So really minimize lighting. Oxytocin flows best when we kiss and touch and do the things that stimulate our sensuality and sexuality. That gets it flowing. Nipple stimulation is really wonderful for it. But then as oxytocin's building and flowing, the next hormone that comes is beta endorphin. And that's our hormone of pleasure. And that's like, if those that are athletes listening, if any runners, especially, we've all heard of that runner's high where they kind of hit the wall. I'm here by New York City, so I love the marathon, and you can see the runners kind of hit that struggle part where it's hard to go on, and everyone cheers them on, and then all of a sudden you can see them almost in their face get the beta endorphins, the pleasure hormone that keeps them going. And that's beautiful to see women in labor. You can see that natural hormone come. It's a pain relief. It provides comfort and pleasure. And the other hormone that's building is prolactin, the hormone of mothering. And so prolactin helps keep calm going. And then we get fully dilated or fully open, right? And we get that moment we call rest and be thankful from Sheila Kissinger, where we all have a nice pause, 5 minutes to 20 minutes. I have women sound asleep and snoring and taking the best power nap of their life, right? And then they're ready to push their baby out. And what's so amazing is what happens in second stage. All the other hormones, I say, are like bubbling and sparkling in our brains and dripping in to our blood and to our uterus. But then adrenaline and cortisol, right, come in, and that pushes you literally to get up, to have energy, to birth your baby. And then you're wide awake even after a 20-hour labor. That adrenaline makes you really ready to greet them. But that adrenaline, if it came too early in labor, would slow or stop the labor.
Right.
So it's a very sensitive hormone that if it arrives in the first stage because we're afraid or we don't feel safe, we don't feel private, our labor will slow or be very long. But when all the other hormones can be given at the right sequence, then once we're fully dilated and open, it is adrenaline that pushes us to birth. And that's the exact same sequence that hormones follow for female orgasm. We have prolactin, we have oxytocin, it's stimulated melatonin, plays a role in there. We get our beta endorphins, our pleasure hormone getting really juicy, and it's just that little push of the cortisol that actually pushes us over to female orgasm. And if we are afraid or don't feel safe, or we think of the 10 things we have to do tomorrow too early in the process, we all know that moment where instead of moving forward in our pleasure and sexuality, we're pulled back. And birth has that same sensitive window that the hormones must flow in the right order. So anything that helps you in your sensuality and sexuality to feel those hormonal shifts is the environment and the things you need to create and protect in birth.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That was such a perfect description. I could see it all in my head. I really hope all the listeners take that in, because it's so interesting, right? We conceive and make the baby, and then it's like suddenly sexuality gets thrown out the window, and it's like, wait, what does sex have to do with birth? It's like a lot, actually. And we can learn so much from it. And yeah, wow, that was fantastic. Thank you. I'd love to talk a bit about the moment where, and we call it transition, right? Where you're almost there, but not quite, and you often want to give up, and often, even if you are very dedicated to having a natural birth, maybe you've done all of this kind of preparation that we've talked about, and you want to open to pleasure, there can be that moment where you say, I want the pain medication now. I want the epidural. I want the whatever is there.
Yes.
What's your favorite tool or tools in that moment?
Well, And I would just remind people back, because I use the marathon analogy, is when the runner hits that point, and almost any athlete knows, any of you that have done athletics know at some point your body hits that, oh my goodness, I can barely go on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But think about the people that are around them. I mean, we run with strangers at the marathon. We cheer people on we've never met because we know what it means to them.
Mm,
Doesn't matter if you're first, but crossing that finish line is often a lifelong dream for people, even
mm,
if they're an hour or 2 hours behind,
mhm, mhm.
and we get that. We cheer them on. That's the biggest tool for women in labor. When we believe in them as doulas, as
Mm,
partners, as friends, as sisters, when
mhm.
we cheer them on and say, I'm here for you, I'm going to be right here, you're doing it, you can do it,
Yeah.
boy, is there a different attitude. And sadly, I see anyway in American hospitals a lot, the minute that person says, this is hard,
Mm,
instead of saying, you can do it, we say, here's the drugs.
yeah.
What everyone hears then is, they'll, well, if you as a medical caregiver, someone who I value, doesn't see in me that I can do it, then how can I believe in myself?
Yep.
And so for me, this is about really saying to everyone on your team, please do not offer me medication.
Mhm,
I know that it exists, and if I want it, I'll request it. But
mhm.
instead, when I'm having those moments of self doubt,
Yep.
and create affirmations. What would you want to hear? We each have our own unique language that we like to be given. Do you want to
Mm,
be told you're strong? What do you want to hear? And literally tell people. I tell people, write a page of at least 5 things you'd like
mm,
to hear. What are ways people could maybe touch you, hold your hand, do acupressure? Give them, spoon feed them the list of what would boost you up, so that no one pulls you down by
mhm,
offering medication. And you're wise. If you want an epidural, then ask for it. It has
mhm.
a time and place that it can be valuable. But overusing it because other people aren't running that extra mile with you, that's sad for me.
Yep.
Because I find when I don't let anyone dangle the epidural or the candy in the room,
Yep.
very few people ask for it.
Yep. So, so true. Absolutely. I love what you said about making the list. I think that that's so empowering as well. Bringing that, yeah, that energy of empowerment to each woman so that she, not so much that she wants to control everything, but that so she can say, here are these kind of conditions that work for me, because each woman truly is different and has that different, love language, like you were saying earlier as well.
Right. So when
Yeah.
you hear, and then there's, as you and I know, have a doula, right?
Yeah.
Because what we do in that moment, and doulas have, which way more than we can do in a talk, a ton of comfort measures, because you really want to have a comfort kit of the many different things that can really take, pain to comfort. And
Mhm.
we want to focus on that. But of course, I do want to honor that when pain becomes suffering, and Penny Simpkin, just a dear friend and mentor to me, always says, no one should suffer in childbirth. And I agree. And in those moments of pain becomes suffering, epidurals are a wise choice. So I don't
Mm,
want anyone to ever feel guilty if
mhm.
that's where, what they need. And I want to honor that that's not only physical pain, but emotional pain. Sometimes labor takes you to places that are emotionally challenging for you. And
Mhm.
able to have that break or that sleep or that rest can be valuable. But I do believe we're greatly overusing a valuable tool in epidural for people that really just need people to believe in them. And
Yep.
instead of getting the kind of comfort tools and touch and support and language, it's easier to give someone an epidural than to run the extra mile with them. And you need to make sure you bring the person with you, like a doula, like your partner, that will be there for those tough moments, and you'll make it through. And it's really fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that you mentioned that with the epidural and how sometimes it's a right choice. And that's definitely something I see in the natural birth world, is that a lot of women can really cling to an idea of an ideal perfect birth. And while we want them as their support team to be able to experience that, sometimes for various reasons it doesn't happen. So are there any I don't know, is there anything you want to say to that to help women who may even be watching who have already had a birth like that, where they thought, oh my God, my dream birth just like collapsed in front of me and I'm grieving this experience and I feel confused because I thought I had prepared. What would you say in that case?
Well, one, I think that every woman, however you give birth, you're a heroine. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
labor takes us to the deepest places, and we never know where it's going to take us. And let's honor that we're only 50%. The baby's 50%, we're
yep.
50%. So
Mm.
we're making a plan that we believe is our plan, but our baby might not agree to that plan.
Yeah.
And if you're a parent, we all know our children don't 100% follow what we would like. They
True.
are individuals from the beginning and they have
Right.
their own mind. And sometimes I would say to moms that had a birth that was very different than they envisioned, that sometimes the greatest gift of motherhood is to give our child their safest path to the world and what
Mm,
they needed.
mm.
That baby that might be posterior in a really long, difficult labor where pain becomes suffering, that baby took that path. You couldn't control that. And you shouldn't feel guilty for what you needed to do to survive and offer your baby still a healthy birth. So I
Mhm.
think we need to honor every story, every person, every baby, and celebrate that you did the best with what you knew and what you were given.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I work with the core desired feeling of the birth. So rather than the outcome, like I want it to be like this and exactly in this way, rather how do you want to feel as this is happening? And
That's
then
beautiful.
yeah, and then trying to weave that in even if it goes to cesarean, because a lot of those core desired feelings are actually quite simple. Like, well, I want to feel connected to my baby or I want to feel safe. So then, as a doula as well, if there's any doulas talking, I think this can be really helpful. Like, okay, let's go back to that core desired feeling. What was it? Okay, you want to be connected to your baby. Do that right now. You can do that at any situation, even if there's an epidural or, whatever. How can you connect with them spiritually or mentally in that way?
Definitely. That's beautiful. And with that too, they can bring the smells, they can they
Right.
often can bring some elements that were important that were
Yeah.
also part of creating that in with them.
Right. 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 Exactly. Well, before we go to our last question, I want to give you an opportunity to share all of your offerings with us. So you are just amazing. And I have had the privilege of taking your course online, so I can speak to how fabulous that is. So if you want to tell anyone online what you have available, but also for birth workers who might be watching, I know you do workshops around the world and even training. So anything you'd like to share?
Well, thank you. And I'm so honored that you took our Pain to Power Childbirth class. So, paintopowerchildbirth.com is an online childbirth class, and we're just about to relaunch with
Mm,
a whole new design. So, it's really an opportunity to join us virtually from anywhere in the world. And we provide you access to not only our film and our book, but we have now some spinning babies in with it. So you get access to Gail Tully and her great information and many other experts, right? We're weaving
mm,
together a lot of information as well as my personal brand on pleasure.
mhm,
I also hope people will go to orgasmicbirth.com. And if you haven't seen our film, it's digital there. So
mm.
you can watch it as a rental, you can stream it and buy it and share, as well as our book. And then for all you doulas out there, one of my favorite retreats that I do, and I hope people will join, is Eat, Pray, Doula with Robin Lim in Bali every year. And we're doing 3 workshops now a year, a doula, a postpartum doula, and
Mm.
advanced. And the advanced is for doctors, midwives, nurses, and doulas that have been practicing a while. But I also train doulas all over the world. I'm doing more retreats in Italy coming up. And so go to debrapascali.bonaro.com and you can find a retreat or a workshop probably somewhere in your part of the world. world. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of the things that I do. And I hope that those that are listening will join me on one of them, or even just send me a note. Join us on Facebook, Orgasmic
Yeah.
Birth on Facebook, or Instagram, or Twitter. We're
Yeah.
Orgasmic Birth hashtag everywhere. So please tweet
Mm.
out or Instagram out what you liked about today's talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, I lived actually down the street from Ibu Robin in Bali. And yeah, and I can't believe I missed that train. Ah, maybe one
Go
day
back.
because yeah, it just sounds so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. So my last question I'm asking everyone is if you could sum up one piece of advice into just a sentence or two for I'm thinking going back in time before you gave birth to your first child, what would you tell yourself then?
If I could go back, I would tell myself that birth could be orgasmic.
mm,
I didn't know that, and I would have really gone to search hard in how to bring pleasure.
mm, yeah. And here
That
you are
really,
on your life path with that.
it really is. And
Beautiful.
and I'm sad that I went into birth with no fear, so that was good. And
Hmm.
I expected birth to be joyful, but I kind of stayed too much in my head of
Hmm.
kind of being aware of everything that was happening. I didn't allow myself, if I had known it was orgasmic in a part of my sexual life, I think I would have had a little bit more of that inward, which I
Right.
eventually came to. And that's where you access, right? That
The
deep
magic.
part. So
Mm,
I would have switched my focus from a little
okay.
outward to inward.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much for spending some time with me today. Yeah, such beautiful work you're doing, and I'm just so inspired. So thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much. And I wish you great travels as you continue on, and I hope we meet in Bali.
Yes, we will meet in person one day, I'm sure of it. Thanks again. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.